Hi, I'm Michael Purath, and I'll be 65 years old next month. And my walk with God, or my testimony, can be described in three phases, I think. The first phase I would call knowledge without faith, no heart change. In the U.S., we always hear about heart disease and how bad it is, and it's in the newspapers, it's on TV, it's in magazines and ads. We see it everywhere. But over 600,000 people die every year of that disease. So what that tells me is we hear a lot, but we don't always do a lot about it. And that's kind of how my walk with God started. I grew up attending church in a mainline denomination. My parents took me to church most Sundays. I went to Sunday school. I went to a lot of training sessions, whether it be confirmation. So in that, I learned a lot about the Bible. I even learned several Bible verses. And I'm sure that I heard that I was a sinner, that I needed to turn from my sins and accept Christ, and He would change my life. But most of what I remember from church is sneaking out with a friend of mine and doing other things. I remember going to summer camp in the mountains of Colorado, to a Christian camp that my church sponsored, and my friend and I were just amazed at the beauty of the mountains and the animals, the trees, the flowers. I just loved the creation, and I loved the mountains, but I never really connected it with the Creator, the one who made all that. So all of those were pretty amazing, but I pretty much went on with my life, focused on me. I graduated from high school, and then I went to college. It was in college that I married Gail when I was 20 years old. And I would have to say at that time, both of us had little interest in spiritual things. In college, I was in Reserve Officer Training Corps, ROTC, and my goal was to be an Army officer. I'd wanted to do that for a long time in my life. But I was not a responsible person, and I flunked out. I did very well in ROTC, I just let all my other studies go. And after I flunked out, because the Vietnam War was still winding down, I got drafted before I could get back into college. And because of that, I started my 22-year military career as an enlisted person at a fairly low rank. Now, after a couple years, I did go to officer candidate school and become an officer, I might say the hard way. And I gained the Bible knowledge in my head, but there was no understanding of what to do with it during this time, and there was no heart change. The second phase I would call knowledge with profession of faith that did not result in real life change. Early in my military career, Gail had a big transformation. She got to know the Lord in a real way, and it just changed her so much. And I saw those changes, and I observed that what she seemed to have was a real relationship with Christ, and that she responded differently to me and different to all the situations that were happening. Now, the situations hadn't changed, but how she responded to them did. And I could tell that she had something that I did not. And I observed for a time, and I decided that I need to get what she had. So I made a profession of faith, that I was a sinner, that I needed Christ, and that I accepted Him with all my heart. The problem was, it didn't really change my life. I was still busy with work. I was still focused on the things that I wanted to do, even though I was more open to spiritual things. I went to church more often. I went to even Bible studies, whether it was couple studies and even some men's Bible studies. I even became involved in church leadership and provided services in the church and enjoyed it. I made attempts to change, but I didn't really see the results. I still gave in to temptation, and I didn't really have a conscience that was real. There was still something lacking. Using the heart disease analogy, it's like I promised to keep my heart healthy but didn't follow through on eating right and exercising. Spiritually, I made a profession of faith, but there was little or no lifestyle change. And when I reflect on my life then, I'm not sure I was comfortable with where I was with the Lord. The last phase happened over time. Several years after that, I finally realized that I needed a whole heart transplant, that I needed God to take my diseased heart and make it new. There were several things that prompted that change. One was my wife's continued spiritual growth and the changes I saw in her and the excitement in her. And the others were men's studies that I was in. I started to notice there were men that were actually living their faith, not just talking about it, not just saying one thing and doing another. I loved the mountains, and at that time I spent some time where I felt God was talking to me through His Spirit and His Word. And I looked back and I could see that God had been working all along in my career and in my life, and that He was just waiting for me to see that. And I believe it was a heart change and not just trying harder. It was a saving faith, not just words or more actions. It was a heart change, but I'm still not where God would like me to be. But I believe the operation was successful. The heart has changed, and the patient will live forever. There's a scripture, I believe, that describes what happened. I will give them an undivided heart and put a new spirit in them. I will remove from them their heart of stone and give them a heart of flesh. Then they will follow my decrees and be careful to keep my laws. They will be my people, and I will be their God. I feel like that's what happened to me. Since then, since that heart transplant, Gail and I have enjoyed the opportunities that God has given us. When Gail and I were in our 50s, we were able to go to seminary and both get master's degrees in leadership for evangelism and discipleship. We've gotten to work in churches and do Christ's work in Budapest, Hungary, where we lived for 5 years. And I agree with Gail that we both want to finish well, and that we know that God will be the key to that. Thank you.